Welcome to another edition of True Birth. We're going to talk about twins and the possibility of avoiding a C-section with a multiple pregnancy. I'm Yaakov Abdelhak. I'm a high-risk, MFM-trained private practitioner who actually takes patients from beginning of pregnancy through the postpartum, usually high-risk patients, lots of experience delivering twins and triplets. And Kristen, who's been a colleague and business partner for many years, and she's a midwife with many years also in the vaginal delivery business, taking care of women that really are desirous of avoiding a C-section. So maternal MFM is the acronym for maternal fetal medicine. It is subspecialty training of OBGYN that concentrates on pregnancy, ultrasound, and complications of pregnancy, either because medical complications a woman might have or the pregnancy itself imposing complications like twins or a history of preterm delivery. So it's a catch-all for high-risk pregnancy and does deal with a lot of ultrasound. And my specialty, what I focused on, is achieving normal delivery in instances where other people would go straight to C-section.
You know, recently you had a triplet vaginal delivery, and you've done them.
Yes.
What's the criteria? What does a woman have to be a good candidate for having a vaginal delivery or attempting a vaginal delivery with triplets? Having
triplets is rare, and rarer now than it's been in the last generation. So, you know, just the natural occurrence of triplets is
low.
Probably it could be one in several thousand, depending on the population you live on. But and most triplets probably have some form of artificial technology attached to it, like ovulation induction or maybe IVF. But because the reproductive endocrinologists have gotten so much better at dosing and being more careful, we just don't see as many triplets as we used to.
So what is it? Is like 2% of pregnancies are twins spontaneously, right? Something like that? 2%?
Again, it's population dependent. So
really? So what populations are having triplets more often?
When it comes to twinning in general, we know that African-American population is more likely to have twins than a Caucasian population, and a Caucasian is more likely to have twins than an Asian population. And even amongst those groups, there are certain ethnic, sub-ethnic populations. I think there are some villages in Africa where the native population might even have like 1 in every 12th birth is twins. Some populations, they've never seen twins because it's just so rare.
Right, so like having an Asian triplet would be spontaneously very rare.
Yes, that would be suspicious.
You would know.
I would be on top. All right.
IVF.
One thing, they've been married for 4 years and then she got pregnant with triplets.
Yeah, well, 4 years isn't so uncommon in a non-Jewish world. Maybe like 14 years.
Right, okay, maybe. So I should preface it. There's two types of triplets. I mean, not triplets, twins. There's what we call monozygotic and dizygotic. So dizygotic means two separate eggs were released by the mother and both got fertilized during the same cycle. And basically you just have two pregnancies occurring simultaneously.
Right, like di means two, zygote means...
Call that dizygotic twins. And monozygotic twins, and we don't like to use the term identical anymore because no two people are identical, so I guess that's not right. And if you're the mother of monozygotic twins, you'd be the first one to say they're not identical at all. They're different people, different personalities, and probably moms don't have any problem telling them apart, although maybe some of us do.
Right, you have to like tie a string on the pinky so you know who's who.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's actually ever done that.
I don't know that I would trust myself to tell them apart if I had.
With girls, different color earrings generally.
That's easy.
Right,
but then with boys, different color earrings too, I guess now. It's 2021.
That's true. That could be working with boys. So when it comes to monozygotic twins, what's interesting is there is no population difference. It's the same across the board. It's 1 in every 250 pregnancies are monozygotic twins, as opposed to, and that's about 1/3 of all twins. Probably 2/3 of twins are dizygotic twins, where they could be two boys, two girls, one of each, and it's just spontaneously two eggs getting fertilized, and that's where we see a difference where the different ethnic groups have different rates of twinning, and if you have twins in the family, it's more likely.
Is that's really true? Because you hear people say that a lot.
Yes. Oh, on the mother's side.
Not the father's side.
Not the father's side, but if on a mother's side, if she has twins that are not monozygotic, again, because that is completely considered just a
random
freak of nature,
thing, right?
Then yes, it's more likely.
So identical twins, well, we're not allowed to call that anymore. Monozygotic, the same.
Monozygotic, same egg.
That's
twins.
Just a freak of nature, random.
Freak of nature, just nature's gift or joke on mom, the way you want to look at it.
Yeah, the glass is half full. And then if you have twins that are dizygotic, then that's, I guess, your mother, your grandmother is more likely to release 2 eggs in a cycle. So you're more likely to release 2 eggs in a cycle.
It would be more common if there's a family history of it, and more common depending, I think, as there are all the other demographic factors. I think as a woman gets older, it's more common. But yes, it's something that has different prevalences in different groups.
Right. So then when you take that to triplets, so I knew triplets growing up. They were my age. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I was born in the 80s. Let's just leave it at that. And 2 of them they looked exactly alike. And then one of them was completely different. Didn't look like, one of these doesn't belong.
And now that you are really educated, you know that 2 of them were...
Yeah, monozygotic. And then
so it was a triplet pregnancy with 2 monozygotic twins plus a third wheel. The whole time she was in there, they were like, hey, you're not part of the group. What are you doing here?
It was like an extra dude. He was just hanging out.
Right. There's 2 of them got along really well, and the third one who was just not invited.
Yeah. So then you can have all different types of triplets.
Right. So you can have, most of the time triplets are going to be trizygotic, which is 3 eggs. Which is, hard to understand because you can even picture one ovary on each side releasing an egg. And ideally, the ovaries take turns. So it goes right side, left side, right side, left side, alternating months. But somehow or another, one ovary releases 2 eggs, and the other one releases 1 egg, and you hit the jackpot, and all 3 get fertilized, and you have a triplet trizygotic pregnancy.
Right, and then you can get like really crazy, and they could even be like fertilized on different days, right? So they could be like a couple days behind.
Didn't actually look this up, but it's just superfetation and superfecundation. And superfetation is when you have a pregnancy and a second pregnancy occurs during the first pregnancy, so that you have different aged babies occurring at the same time. And it's thought to not happen in humans. But every once in a while, there's a story in the National Enquirer or maybe even the Post where, they confirm that these 2 babies are weeks apart growing in the same womb. But it's known to happen in animals. It doesn't happen in humans for the most part.
Right. So then you could have like a growth restriction, but really there's no growth restriction. They're just behind.
Right. And there's no growth restriction at 8 and 10 weeks. So when you see one baby measuring 10 weeks and one baby measuring 8 weeks,
you should know that you
got something that needs to be explained. Either one of those pregnancies is not healthy, or one is 2 weeks behind the other one, even if they're in the same uterus. So that would be something called, I think that's superfetation. Generally doesn't occur in humans. And superfecundation would be when a woman has twins, but by different fathers.
Oh, right. That could be.
I can't even go there because I know I'll get into trouble if I explain how that happens.
Yeah. And also, what about different uteruses, right? So you could have like
so you're talking about like a didelphys uterus.
Right. A didelphys is like a woman who has 2 separate horns of her uterus or 2 separate uteruses.
Right. But that wouldn't have anything to do with twins. And although it is possible. So didelphys uterus is when the uterus does not develop correctly. As uterus is migration tissue from the lateral sides of the body, they come together to make this round ball we call the womb or the uterus.
Right, and it kind of looks like a hot air balloon typically, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Except for the air and the size and that it's not hot. Yes, I guess that would be really...
Exactly right.
Right. But sometimes those tissue migration doesn't happen correctly, and instead of one large uterus, you get these 2 separate half uteruses that each one can function as a separate uterus. They can each have their own cervix, and it can be like almost 2 separate uteruses. And I think Kristen is saying maybe you could have a pregnancy in each one of those. I don't see why not. I bet if we looked it up, it probably was documented somewhere that could happen.
I mean, we're kind of in a really cool off-topic way. So now let's say someone has triplets. So you're saying they could be trizygotic.
Right. So you're right. When you look at triplets, first you want to determine the zygosity. There's different risk factors that go with monozygotic twins or trizygotic. And I did have actually a monozygotic triplets where all 3 were the same.
So it had split and then split again?
Right. It had the egg split in half. Right, so we didn't really explain it. Monozygotic twins is when the egg splits in half, and it splits in half at a point early enough that each baby develops completely separately and becomes a separate individual, and that's called monozygotic twins. And if that happens twice, then you get triplets, which is extremely rare.
But it's happening twice.
1 in 50,000 or 1 in 100,000 pregnancies.
So we'll back up and explain. So you have haploid, half genetic material from the father and the mother. So you have 1 sperm, 1 egg. They're fusing together, and then monozygotic twins, this one sperm and one egg is splitting and becoming two, which is why they have almost
So you
the same
start
DNA.
with one egg that should be one baby, but for whatever reason, it splits in half. In the lab, you can actually stimulate it to split in half. They can nick it and they can cause it to split. But in nature, we don't know why, but it'll just split in half, and each half will become. Now, you're not talking at this point a baby. You're talking about a cluster of cells. A cluster of cells that's starting to take into the shape, and very early on, we're talking about within a few days after conception, when it splits in half, you can have two separate twins.
Right. So then that's kind of cool because it like splits in half and now you have two, but of the two, only one is splitting in half again to get triplets.
Right.
Weird.
And it is weird, and it's hard to understand because, why does it keep splitting in half? Just on the side note, if you want to think about what do we call conjoined twins, or what we used to call Siamese twins, you know what they call Siamese twins?
Why?
There's two famous circus show brothers. I guess the term was freak show, although I guess that term is out. But they were these twins from China, and they were called the Siamese twins, the Chan brothers. I think that was named. They were attached to the chest.
China was,
and they were from China,
which was Siamese,
right? So that they were the Siamese twins. Conjoined twins are monozygotic twins where the egg split too late. It's too late for them to become two separate individuals, so they share body parts. They could be attached to the head or the chest or the hips, sometimes at the belly, and yeah, it could be obviously a real problem. So that's what conjoined twins are. But even if it splits a little late, not too late, you can get something called monozygotic twins in one sac, where both babies are swimming around the same pool and their cords are entangling. And that is also a problem, also a complication. Most monozygotic twins are monozygotic but amniotic, which means they have two separate amnions and they have two separate inner sacs, even if they're sharing a placenta.
Right, so you're talking about the amniotic fluid sac. The amnion is
right.
the amniotic
So it's
fluid
important
sac.
because twins can get into trouble when they tangle in each other's cords, and if each one has their own sac,
Yeah,
it's
they have a
much
membrane,
safer.
right? Like
They can't get entangled with each other. So I had a set of triplets a few years ago, and she had actually all three babies were exactly from the same egg. And you could tell that based on how the membranes between them looked. She didn't have any artificial treatment. It was just a natural monozygotic triplets, and they were all boys because they're all the same gender. And I remember, and she had actually, by the way, 5 children at home, and this was her 6th pregnancy, and she had triplets.
now she was having 8.
And I said to her, I don't have any boys. Can I have one? And I thought,
That's how you got your son.
they're identical. Who need 3 of the same kid? And I don't have a son. And I thought this would be really cool. She can give me a boy. And
She didn't go for it?
No, I mean, I wouldn't even want, she could pick first. I would take the last
You
one.
take the runt of the litter.
I have found as an obstetrician gynecologist that women are extremely selfish about
Keeping their babies.
Yes, very selfish.
You're doing all this work.
Doesn't matter. It's my baby. You can't have it. That type of attitude is unfortunately prevalent.
What is this world coming to? These women want to keep their babies
And she actually did deliver normal delivery.
vaginally.
Yes. So she dodged a lot of bullets. There was no discordance in growth, meaning all the babies grew equally, and there was no abnormal blood flow, because you see that much more common with shared placentas. So all the babies grew equally, so there was no concern there with one of the babies being too small and needing to come out early. She didn't go into preterm labor, although they all go into preterm labor. But for triplets, if you get to 33 weeks, that's actually really good. I think the average triplet gestation is 32 weeks. I don't even go past 35 weeks because a triplet pregnancy is so inherently dangerous. It's hard to justify going past 35 weeks, even if everything looks great.
And the dangers are like preeclampsia and...
No, even just sudden demise of one of the babies. It's, statistically, bad things happen to multiples much more than singletons.
So you'd say like a triplet at 36 weeks is like a singleton at 42.
Well, they do mature faster, so that in that way, yes. But more of, yes, the risk factors, yes, the risk goes up. I wouldn't say it's like a singleton of 42, because that would imply that their placenta is old and it's not working as well. It's just, I would say that you have children playing in the street, and as the point where you are comfortable that they're mature enough, get them out of traffic. So it's not necessarily that the placenta is getting old or what you can specify some danger is. You just know that's dangerous pregnancy, and while they have to be in there, they have to be in there at a point where it's they're mature enough to be out of there. So
there are some stillbirths in triplets that are happening in the 9th month.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yes, and even if it's only 1 or 2%, we're talking about individuals and babies, and it is not a real consolation to a woman to lose a baby because the other two, if you have 3 babies in your heart and you're carrying 3 babies and you lose one, that is a very tough pill to swallow. And yes, you might be distracted a little bit by having the other 2 that are healthy, but it's
but
still
they're
very
still
hard,
lost.
right?
Yeah.
So you have to treat each one as if it's like in
A
danger
singleton,
alone.
sure. And then, so it's really idiopathic. They don't know what causes a stillbirth in the 9th month, or is there certain?
There are all types of obstetrical issues that can come up, like you said, preeclampsia,
Like cord prolapse?
cord accidents that could happen. A woman can go into preterm labor. There could be an abruption. A lot of things can happen, and it doesn't really help. It's not really helpful to kind of worry specifically about each one. It just, if you statistically know that there's high risk in that pregnancy,
Right,
at
35
term,
weeks is kind of
35 weeks. I've read people going to 36 weeks to triplets. I don't know if I'd be comfortable. I happen to have like almost a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde approach. I'm extremely patient when everybody's really young, and I'm trying to keep them out of the NICU. And then as soon as they get close enough,
you're like, get out.
Right, that's it. It's like I'm like sitting on my hands, and all of a sudden I am grabbing all my money and I'm taking it and running for the door, right? And they're like, that guy didn't say a word until he grabbed all his money and ran out the door with.
What happened?
Right. He decided that it was time to cash out.
So then what would make someone with a triplet pregnancy a candidate for a vaginal delivery? Because before a certain gestational age, they can't have a vaginal delivery, right, if they're breech.
Right. So if a patient goes into labor early, you want to avoid a vaginal delivery. First, let's talk about why is it that any multiple is complicated in general. Like a lot of doctors don't even consider doing twins
vaginally,
even
right?
At 38 weeks, they're not going to consider twins vaginally. And why is that? What is the concern that they have that they advise their patients to go ahead and just have a C-section?
I think it's really the second twin or the third triplet, right? It's
I
getting
think
the
that's fair.
first
You
baby.
can say the first one is
like
going
a
to come out
singleton.
just like any other baby, but the second one might be a problem.
Right, as long as the first one's head down, right? So as long as the first one's head down, you're like, this is just like any other singleton pregnancy. I'm going to handle it the same way. But once that first baby comes out, now you got a whole nother, there's a vacuum, the second baby's switching position.
Exactly. So the first baby could be seen as any baby because you're monitoring, everything's fine, heart rate's fine. You get you get through labor, you push the baby out just like any other baby. Probably a little easier because it's smaller. The second one can be a concern because even if it was head down the whole pregnancy, maybe it's going to flip, or maybe it's not going to descend because it's being head down and the baby dropping into the pelvis and coming out is not always the same thing.
Right, and that's the physics of it, right? So like you have negative space. There's one twin A is out, the first twin is out, and now you have negative space, which causes like a vacuum almost, right? So that's why the second one can change positions pretty easily.
Yes, I agree that the second one could flip around because now there is more room to flip around. Although, why do you mean a vacuum? Like there's a suction on the second one?
No, so it's like because you're losing volume, you're not replacing it with anything, right? Like from a physics perspective.
But the whole uterus is decompressing when the baby comes out.
Right, that's what I mean. Like that's why it's kind of like a.
Okay, so you're saying
like
that
a shunt maybe is a better word
so
than a vacuum.
So the sweep, the first baby comes out. There's a whole whoosh in there, and
and then the second baby kind of jams into a certain position.
So that could happen, and that is a concern. So even if the baby's head down, you're not guaranteed that it's going to stay head down. And if it does stay head down, you're not guaranteed that it's going to drop into the pelvis. And meanwhile, the whole uterus just went from a large volume to a much smaller volume, and maybe the placenta is going to shear. So there's a lot of things going on there. Require you to consider that there's a higher risk with twins than there is with the singleton.
Right, and there's a risk of a cord prolapse too with the second twin.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That's never come up. I've been doing this. I've delivered. I don't know. I can't
really,
even tell you how many
every
twins.
time I'm in a twin
Not
delivery,
once
that's
did
what
I
I'm
ever see a
freaking out
cord
about.
prolapse in a twin.
I know. I'm always freaking out about that.
What are we talking about? Oh, twins. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the cord prolapse. Now you're delivering the second twin,
So
and
the
why do
second
people?
twin is right. So the second, a lot of things could happen between the first and second twin. If after the first one comes out, you have to wait for the second one to come down. Usually there's a several minute delay and you're monitoring, and if things go bad, the heart rate goes down, the placenta separates, you might have to do a crash C-section, and that's stressful. You might not be able to get the second one out. It's possible. I can't even count how many twins I've done. Every once in a while, I can't get the second one out.
Why? Because the uterus just says I'm done contracting, or
part of it contracts and squeezes it, and you can grab a leg, and the baby's just
not coming.
And you're dealing with a baby, so you kind of part of you realizes you just can't pull full strength to get the baby out. If it doesn't want to come out, it's not coming out.
Right. And there's an emergency exit plan. So
Right. And if you were prepared, you have an operating room ready, and you can go do a C-section, and which occasionally happens. So it's a stressful time between the first and the second. I actually, I'm in the habit after the first baby comes out, I like to tell the mother while I'm waiting for the second one to come out, I usually like to renegotiate my fee. I feel like I have a lot of leverage.
Because they're not under duress or anything.
If you have read any good book on business, when the leverage is in your corner is when you're supposed to negotiate. Okay?
So these women are supposed to have a backup plan. Maybe that's why babies were born like a day apart in the old days. They were like, the doctor tried to renegotiate the fee, and then the woman was like, I'm going to find another doctor. She's wandering the halls. She's looking for someone.
I haven't had anybody get off the table. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Well, maybe you're not negotiating hard enough. I don't know. You're not pushing the line.
So, okay, let's talk about why it is that you would not want to deliver twins, and then we can extrapolate to triplets. So, if baby A is vertex and baby B
vertex meaning head down,
and baby B is about the same size or maybe just a little bit bigger, that's a pretty safe delivery because they'll both fit out.
When the first baby and the second baby are roughly the same size, good to go.
Even if the second baby doesn't come out head first, even if the second baby comes out feet first.
Right, so the second baby can come out head first and the second baby can come out feet first or butt first.
Right, in the event they're about the same size.
And does it's the same for first-time moms and second-time moms or third-time moms?
It's always nicer if mom has previous history of normal delivery because
there's a little more give.
Yeah, there's more room. The labor goes faster. You expect everything to go smoother, just like second deliveries are easier than first. And if a woman's had many children, it becomes even that much easier.
Okay, so now they're the same size, the first one's head down. Now, what if they're the same size but the first one is breech?
Then you could still deliver, but most people would not consider that. And even in my career, I've done it twice.
Okay, so you just say, okay.
So there's a few things they have to worry about. One of them is so scary that I know the only reason it ever came up was because it happened to a few poor souls, and they had to write about it because they were like, oh crap, people don't ever let this happen to you. It's called Interlocking Heads. Are you familiar with that? Is that a midwifery thing that ever comes up?
I don't think I don't remember that.
But it's exactly that. Now imagine the first one's breech and facing the second one, and the second one is vertex facing the first one. But the second one's chin and the first one's chin are locked, right? So
yeah, they're like necking.
Right. Each baby's kissing the other baby's neck, right? That's called so that you can have one baby on the way out and the head is locked on the second baby. Yeah. And I know that sounds ridiculous because it sounds like something that should never happen. It's like so crazy, but it's documented. And if you have a breech baby and a vertex baby and their heads are positioned like that, right, it's not clear when you would say, okay, these babies cannot have interlocking heads, like their heads are too far away from each other, or, oh no, I can't deliver these twins. They may have interlocking heads, but it's just the whole idea is almost a nightmare.
But you did it twice. So
right. So I picked the right couples because they've had normal deliveries before. The baby A was breech and probably B was breech also, or yeah.
So you knew the heads were far away from each other.
Right. So I knew there wouldn't be interlocking heads, and then the first one came. The first one was the regular breech delivery, and the second one was a internal pedalic delivery. You have to go in, you grab the legs, and you pull the baby out. That when it comes to twins, you got to be ready to be like a vet. You ever see those videos where they go in there and grab a sheep by the feet?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you got to go in there with your hand, go all the way up, find the legs, make sure one's not an arm. Not easy to tell inside because you grab both legs. They're slippery little things. You put a finger between each one. Each leg goes between one finger with one finger in the middle. You get a good grip, a strong grip, and you drag the baby out.
Or gentle traction.
Gently. I have never delivered twin B without having bruises on the legs. I never pulled out a baby by the legs without there being bruising. Meaning you have to squeeze hard enough.
Right. So that's just kind of part of the process.
Right. I always blame the pediatricians. I don't know if it really works. I always tell mom, by the way, I don't know what's with that pediatrician, but they tend to bruise the baby's legs.
We're investigating.
Right. We're looking at, I keep telling them, be gentle, but there's always leaving bruises behind. So yes, that is normal. But moms are pretty happy because they avoided a C-section.
Right. So when you do twins, a lot of the time you're in the operating room or you're in the labor room?
Most of the time I'm in a labor room because I'm very comfortable with the situation. If it's a first-time mom, where it might be a little more difficult, or there's anything that has my radar up, then I'll do it in the operating room.
Right. So then you bring up this point about the baby B being bigger.
So this is important. Is it safe to deliver a baby breech in general?
Yes.
All breeches?
No.
Which ones would you not deliver breech?
Footling.
Why not?
because the circumference of the butt is not going to be the same circumference as the head.
Exactly. Explain to the audience what that means.
So when you're delivering and the feet are coming first, the circumference around the feet, if you tied a string around the feet, it's not going to be the same diameter, size as the head. The head's going to be bigger. So then you're going to have the feet come out and then the head's going to get stuck.
Well, what happens if that baby comes out head first? How come the head doesn't get stuck that way? I mean, the head's no bigger if it comes out first or second.
Because once the head comes out, the uterus contracts a little bit.
No, because the head acts like a funnel, so it pushes everything away. That's why a woman pushes and pushes and pushes till the baby comes out. That head is pushing everything to the side. But when a baby comes out head last, the neck doesn't act like a funnel. Then
the neck is stuck.
Right, the neck is stuck. The head is nice and round and it's pointy and everything getting pushed till the head fits.
Right, and then if the
legs are last, the baby no longer getting any blood supply because the baby's out, the cord is out, and the head's still stuck inside.
Right. So if the legs are by the head, then the circumference of when the legs are like completely by the head, that circumference is similar size to the head.
To be sure that the head's going to fit, you want those legs all the way up towards the baby's chest, and the thickness of the baby's butt together with its thighs that are folded is going to be enough to allow the head to fit through.
So why are you delivering foot-lean breech in twin B then, and it's no problem?
Because twin A paves the way, right? So we don't want to deliver a baby breech if it's the first one, because you're going to grab the legs and you're going to pull the baby out and then it's going to get stuck in the head. Like imagine you shimmy through a small hole, but then the head gets there and can't fit. But if the cervix was already pre-opened by the first baby, then the second baby should fit. Unless what?
Unless the second baby's huge.
Unless the second baby is much bigger than the first baby. So if you have twins where the second baby's 20% or more bigger than the first twin, you have to be worried that the first twin is not going to pave the way and the second one is going to get stuck at the head.
So why couldn't the second one just shove its way out?
And no, wouldn't that be nice if you could do that?
Why not?
So A and B are not, they're designated by where they are in relation to the cervix.
Like who's closer to getting out first?
And that's the one that's coming out first. It would be nice if you could choose who's coming out first.
Yeah, you're like, you're bigger, so here, line up by size.
The one that's lower is always coming out first. And if that one is going to get out, it's going to make room for the second one, as long as the second one's not bigger. And then the second one, when that second one comes down, it's going to fit even if you pull it out by the legs because the cervix has been dilated.
Okay.
Now, that's with twins. Now we get to triplets. There's more rules about twins, more things that we have to think about. Just like when you look at a baby, right? A baby's like, 40% head and 60% body, right?
Yeah,
the head is like this huge Humpty Dumpty thing, right? But then as a toddler, it keeps that ratio keeps changing. Into an adult, maybe the head is like 10% of the body size.
Yeah, 8%,
right?
yeah.
So in utero, it's exactly the same, where it goes in the reverse, meaning the earlier you are in the pregnancy, the more the head is
right, it's disproportionate, the head to the body.
So the proportion of the head is disproportionately large the earlier you go. So if you deliver earlier, at like say 32 weeks, you expect the head to even be more significantly larger than the body. So you don't want to deliver twins that are too premature. Any breech, you don't want to deliver too premature because, yes, you might get the body out, but then the head's going to get stuck because it's a giant head compared to the body at 30 or 32 weeks. And as you get closer to term, it becomes safer, right? I wouldn't really deliver any breech baby before term with that consideration. And even more so if the baby's under a certain weight, the same problem because the body's just not big enough. Usually when babies are small, it's not the head that's super small, it's the body that's not growing well. So if a baby's under 2,000 grams, probably not a good idea to attempt a breech delivery.
So that's helpful. But then when you have triplets, you kind of are...
Right. So now that's why it's very rare to deliver triplets vaginally because you have so many factors.
Right. That could prevent you from...
The first one has to be head first.
So that right there. You could have transverse, you could have breech.
You could have any position. Next, you don't want any one of them to be... any of the other two to be significantly bigger than the first one, or because maybe that one is not going to come out. Because it's going to get stuck when you pull the legs,
right? So they roughly have to all be the same size.
You have to assume A's coming out vertex and the other two you're going to grab by the legs. Next, they have to make it close to term, like 34, 30. You don't want to be doing twin deliveries on premature babies because, again, the head to body size ratio is way off. So there's a lot of factors that prevent you from even considering triplet delivery, and that's why it comes up so rarely. And one of the most major factors is the mother motivated? Now, remember, a C-section sucks, but a C-section for triplets is the same exact C-section and 3 times the benefit, right? So if you're going to say, oh, well, a C-section is safer, here you're getting 3 babies to safety with 1 C-section as opposed to 1, it's not like you're having 3 separate C-sections. 1 C-section, 3 babies are shepherded to safety.
So what are the common factors in women that you found who are motivated for triplet deliveries?
So the triplet vaginally deliveries I've done have been women who are aiming for large families. Because
3 isn't big enough.
3 is nothing. Right, the average family is going to have 3 kids and give 1 away. No, they won't. I've asked, but they would think about it at least. So they want to have a lot of children. So therefore, they want to avoid that C-section. Some of them are just very natural about their bodies and then don't like the idea of having a C-section.
Right, or surgery. The abdominal surgery is
and they want to enjoy their kids. And so yeah, some women are just more motivated than others, but I would say the vast majority of women that are carrying triplets and are like, okay, I'm 3 and done because this is more than I've ever even wanted, are not looking for anything other than the safest way to deliver all 3, and not looking for any dramatic delivery with a vaginal delivery.
So when you've done triplet vaginal deliveries, they're usually about 35 weeks. The first one's head down. You're doing it in the operating room.
34 to 35 weeks. The first one's head down. I'm in the operating room, so I can switch over to C-section immediately.
Right.
I have an anesthesiologist in the room. The patient has an epidural and can be bolused and quickly converted to C-section.
Go into C-section, right?
And pediatric team, actually 3 of them are in the room.
Right. It's like a major party because you have a nurse for the mom.
There's like 25, 30
you got a
people
nurse for each baby. You got a pediatrician, and then you have everybody, the audience.
Right,
of everyone
and then
who wants
there's always
to see.
a few students, and there's always people like, what, a triplet vaginal delivery? I want to see that. So yes, so it's come up in Hackensack Medical Center, great hospital by the way, where we practice. Hackensack Medical Center has had a total of, I think it's 5 now, 5 triplet, because that last one was the 5th, 5 triplet vaginal deliveries.
And you did them all.
I did them all, right. I have the record. Imagine.
Number 2 is also you. So you're also the triplet king, the VBAC king and the triplet king.
I'm not going to go with triplet king. I'm not going to make a living off of doing a triplet delivery every 5 years. So, but so yes.
Well, if you charge the right price, maybe.
5 vaginal triplet deliveries, all of them in Hackensack. It comes up every 3 to 4 years, maybe. But people do find me. It's not like I just have a lot of people find me because they say, hey, I'd like a triplet, I don't want a C-section. Is this an option? And then we talk about it.
Right. Also, if I was having twins, it would make me feel very comfortable knowing that you do triplets vaginally. I would be like, this guy, if I had one more,
this guy,
he can handle it. I'm good here.
That's great. I don't know if that's true, right? Like if I knew that, if I knew you could drive drunk really well, then I would let you drive.
Right. Then you would let me drive you around because it would be fine.
Even drunk, he drives well. It's fine.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the story about the first triplet delivery I ever did. So I had a patient, and it was her first pregnancy. So she was not ideal triplet delivery. Her first babies, IVF, triplets, and she said, I want a normal delivery. And I said, I have never done triplets normal delivery. I've done a lot of twins, but I've never done triplets. Do you still want me to do that? And she said, yes, if you're willing to do it, I'd like a triplet normal
She's
delivery.
like, no one else will drive me drunk, so you're it.
And I was up with her, and she is laboring like molasses, and I'm sitting around in the doctor's lounge waiting.
Right, because it's her first vaginal delivery.
I'm babysitting the heck out of that. And then I start like, there's a textbook, and I flip open to triplets.
Right, which makes her feel really confident.
And it said in the book, no, she was not in front of her. I was in the nurse station. And it said, triplets are notoriously slow laborers. And I'm like, oh, now you tell me.
Right, that would have been good to know. Right. Before I agreed.
Hours and hours, I'm waiting for these babies. Anyway, she delivered after many hours. She pushed baby A out. And I don't remember most of my deliveries, but I remember her as well. After baby A came out, I put my hands in and I tried to get baby B out by grabbing the legs. And I did grab the legs, but I could grab one leg. I remember if I could grab, I just couldn't get baby B out. A colleague of mine who's an attending, who was in the room in the back with me, she had the ultrasound machine. And she said, hey, Dr. A, Triplet C's heart rate is in the 80s. And she's trying to be like subtle, like not to raise any alarm with the patient. So she's like giving me information that, she knows I understand, but she's not like screaming, bradycardia on C.
Move it, stop.
Right. Oh my God, this is going downhill fast. So she's like, Dr. A, baby C heart rate. And I'm like, I'm going to get to C, but B is in the way. And B was vertex actually, and I wanted B to come down, but I couldn't get B to drop. I'm waiting, but I can't get to C because B
is in the way.
Yes, B is like there's a traffic jam and there's an emergency behind B, and after another 30 seconds, she's like, still in the 60s or the 80s, she's
Move
giving
it.
me, and her tone is one of which,
urgency.
You want to do something, and I'm like, yeah, I am doing something. That's why my arm is all the way up here. I'm trying to get, and then I did a vacuum. I consider it a high vacuum. I put the vacuum on baby B's head, probably at the level of the mother's belly button.
Right. No problem.
I am pretty sure if you read the vacuum insert,
right,
it does not allow. It's right. You're like, when it comes to station of the head, 0.
Right, how high it is, yeah.
Right, so that's like, the station goes from +3, which is all the way to close to delivery, and to -3, which is at just jaw dropping into the pelvis.
And you were like -10.
Yeah, I was way up there. So I got the vacuum on the baby's head, and I pulled B out, and B came out nicely. And then I went in and grabbed C's legs and pulled C out, and everybody was fine.
Right.
But yes,
but you had a couple more gray hairs that day.
I did, and it is a little stressful. At that point, I really just felt that I could get C out faster by, sticking with my plan than converting to C-section.
Right. And how many weeks was she?
I think she was about 34. So the amazing thing was that because she avoided a C-section, she didn't come back because, she doesn't need the VBAC king.
She's like, screw you.
Right. She went back
I used you and abused you.
And then a few years later, she came back because some specific complication, and she came back. But she told me when she came back, like every time she'd go to an OB and they'd get her history, they would like, well, you mean you had a C-section? She'd be like, no, I had a normal delivery, the triplets. Then they say, but you mean you had a C-section? She goes, no, right? She would just like every time with this repetitive correction that nobody could get it through their head that her first delivery was not a C-section.
So how old are those babies now?
I would say 18, maybe. 18,
oh, wow.
19. This was back in 2002 or
so not at Hackensack.
Yeah, it was at
Oh, it was.
Yeah, the old labor and delivery, not the one we have now.
Right.
And if you ask Dr. King-Chong, she still remembers. She was the one.
Bradycardia.
Baby C, heart rate in the 70s. Dr. A, baby C. Yeah, it was like a really nice chime, but instead of something nice like it's time for tea, it was like fire.
By the way, fire here.
Right. So yes, so that was a nice delivery, and it was nice for her because she was able to have many more normal delivery than she was in the VBAC, and the kids are really big now.
Good for her.
So yes, so
that's a great note.
It doesn't come up very often,
but when it does,
right? And I wouldn't advertise. Come to me for your triplet vaginal deliveries because it's just not really a good way to make a living.
Right, but it does make me feel better about the twins.
Yes, although I will tell you that I have read textbooks that are standard textbooks in OB, and they say there is no room for vaginal delivery in triplets. Like they just rule it out.
Right, they're like, forget it.
Right.
Screw
ACOG
you.
doesn't say that, by the way, because ACOG is like always trying to make sure that doctors always have options. But Williams Obstetrics, who's one of them, a major.
That's source. Like our main textbook. That's like Williams is it.
No room. All right, this is the last time I checked the Triplet chapter, like triplet vaginal delivery, and they list all the complications. They go, there's really no room for this. This should be just C-section. I'm like, I disagree, Dr. Williams. So did we cover everything? We talked about types of twins, types of triplets, and what the issues are with delivering triplets and why it's such a rare event. So I did deliver the monozygotic triplets vaginal delivery, and because it's a 1 in 60,000 pregnancy to begin with, and she had a vaginal delivery, I'm going to challenge anybody out there to say they also delivered monozygotic triplets vaginally.
Yeah, see, so
I'm looking for somebody who can say they did that.
Yeah, so we're just going to keep adding it to your tagline, all these taglines that you have. I mean, you should write that up.
Like Game of Thrones, she's breaker of chains,
and Mother of Dragons, breaker of chains, freer of the Endovs, or whatever she was.
The unburnt. I love that, the unburnt. One word that just says the unburnt.
Yeah, we'll have to come up every episode. We'll add on to your list.
The other person that did that, by the way, was Idi Amin. He just kept on.
Who's that?
He was the dictator of Uganda in the early 80s. He was the general who took over, and then he kept giving himself more and more names, like General, Doctor, Savior of the country, and he had
Messiah.
This ridiculously long title. By the time I guess he was assassinated, I don't know what happened to him at the end. He didn't last very long. His rule was famous for the Entebbe the Israeli Entebbe mission.
Yeah.
And he would send his troops out into the jungle to shoot the animals because he wanted to modernize the country.
Okay. All right.
That might be controversial.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to have a lot of names like that guy, but maybe you can
Field
start
Marshal,
your own trend.
Dada, General. Yes. No, I'm going to go with Game of Thrones woman.
Yeah, that's much better. Daenerys Stormborn.
It's really cool because the first triplet delivery I did was in 2002 or 3, and those kids are like 17. They're 2 girls and a boy, and the mom brings pictures in because we still see her.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I mean, first of all, you feel so old when you remember something really well, and it was like 17 years ago.
Well, just wait till that girl has a baby.
I know that would. Oh my God.
Then you'll be really old. You're not old yet. You're just like on your way to old. So when she has a baby, then we'll call you old.
You know, now that you said that,
she's going to come in like this week. You're going to see her name as new patient on your schedule.
And I'll be like, "What's your obstetrical history?" She's like, "I was a triplet. You delivered me. Normal delivery."
Right. How many more did that woman have after that?
She had like 6 more. But
right, so it was worth it then.
They were all. She never had a C-section, and I just know she can come back because we're kind of like a little bit more expensive, and we specialize in high-risk pregnancies. And after her triplet vaginal delivery, she was basically low risk again because, her second pregnancy was a singleton. But I just wish I was in the office with her when she told her obstetrician, her history. And he said, "Oh, okay, how many kids you had?" She said, "Well, I had triplets." And he said, "Okay." And then, and then you can have another, do you want to go back to normal delivery or do you want a C-section? And she would have said, no, I had a normal delivery.
Yeah.
And he said, "What country was this in? Like, what are you talking about?"
She was like the doctor next door. We hope you enjoyed our chat and you learned something new. We'd love to hear from you, and you could reach us on our various channels on either maternalresources.org or integrativeob.com. We also have Instagram and Facebook handles at Maternal Resources and Integrative OBGYN. You can even check out our latest YouTube channel, and as always, subscribe to True Birth Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.